This podcast is on your journey in music and how you got to where you are today.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds cool to me.
Sweet. You just said that you're from Philly. Talk to me a little bit about growing up there.
Of
Are you in
course.
the city?
So I'm from just outside of Philadelphia. I actually just got into like not an argument, but a little back and forth with my sister because I was talking to her about how recently I've changed how I tell people where I'm from because
Okay.
I don't feel right saying I'm from Philly when there's people that are actually from Philly, and there's definitely problems with growing up in a city. You know, like sometimes like urban developments and stuff like that are systemically biased. So I
Sure.
feel like when I grew up in the suburbs and got my experience, I can't then turn around and be like, I'm from Philly because I didn't go through any of the things that people who actually are in Philly had to face. So that's my
Sure.
so I'm gonna change what I say. I'm from just outside of Philly. I'm from this place called Marion. I actually went to high school where Kobe went to high school, Lower Marion High School. So
Really?
mhm,
Wow. So that must be a big deal out there. And is that the
yeah.
basketball tie? Well, that's funny that you weren't really into basketball until later.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, isn't that because I went to private school for until high school,
Mhm.
so I guess I didn't get into. And I always played sports. So I always liked football. Football's always been my main thing, my main
Mhm.
squeeze.
That's cool though. That Kobe went there. Is it like
Yeah,
pictures of him all over the place?
yeah. He actually donated the whole gym. It's called the Kobe Bryant Gymnasium.
Wow, that's cool. I
Yeah.
mean, that must have been a pretty, I don't know, big blow to the school and everything
Oh yeah.
a couple of years ago when that
It was.
all happened.
It was like everyone that I went to high school with. Just Kobe was really present in all of our lives, and I
Mhm.
growing up my whole life it was I knew that I was from where Kobe was from, and there was all this folklore like a certain rim would be bent in someone's backyard, and they were like, yeah, Kobe dunked on that rim and it bent, and no one ever did
Oh,
it. So like things like that, which always happened like since when I was growing up, I always had those stories in my mind. So when he did die, it was like it didn't make sense because it felt like, that wasn't possible.
sure. Yeah. I mean, we're in San Diego and we don't have basketball. We did years and years ago, but a lot of people from here love the Lakers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like the thing. And even in LA, like I
Yeah.
feel bad for the Clippers. I personally like the Clippers more. But
Really?
that's just me. I love Kyrie Irving or not Kyrie Irving.
Kawhi Leonard?
Kawhi Leonard. Yeah. I was thinking Kyrie Irving because I just read an article today that he went to a party. He's
Yeah.
getting sued 50,000 from the because he went to
Yeah.
an indoor party. He's getting sued 50 grand from the NBA, and then he's gonna lose 5 games, so he's losing 800K. I was like, oh my god.
Pretty
But
crazy. It's a
yeah, that's so much money. But yeah, I like Kawhi Leonard because he went to San Diego State, so
Oh,
it's our
right. Actually,
hometown.
I have a friend who she's from San Diego State, and I forget how, but her mom maybe taught there or something, and
Hmm.
became like good friends with Kawhi, and so like
Uh-huh.
her family is really close family friends with Kawhi, and like he comes over for dinner and shit like
Oh
that
my gosh, that's rad.
every time. Every time that like the Lakers and Clippers play, or the actually, well, it used to be because he was on Toronto. Every time that he came to LA, they would go to the game and then hang out afterwards. But
Uh-huh.
I guess now that he's playing on the
He's
Clippers,
he's
it's
on
not
the
like
Clippers.
yeah,
Yeah,
unless
that's
he's
cool.
yeah.
That's really cool.
So I haven't met him yet through that, but I'm waiting. I'm gonna
Yeah, sure. You got to take her up on that. That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, so sports, you said you're into football, but what about music? When did you get into music?
Yeah, I mean, so music, I've always been in like I started playing piano when I was 2 or 3 years old.
Oh,
My parents
wow.
put me in lessons really young, which is funny because I don't really think about my life path too often. And when I first started having interviews and stuff about my music,
Hmm.
uh, people would be like, when did you start making music? And I'd be like, I don't know, like I don't know. I always did it. And then I thought about it and I was like, I literally have always done it because I've been doing it since I was 3 years old. So
That's
yeah, I
crazy.
started playing music when I was 3. Sorry. I go on tangents. I've been listening to to like interviews and podcasts I've done, and I'm trying to figure out what I can reel in on. I think that's one of them is going on these tangents.
No, well, the thing about our podcast is I love the tangents, man. I don't care. I'd prefer the tangents because I always say nobody's here for me. They're here for for whoever I'm interviewing. So
You got the gel. You're the gel that brings it all together.
I just tried to steer it in the conversation, But I love that. Okay, so you've always been playing music. 2, 3 years old, you're picking up piano. Were you always writing songs, or was it always just kind of learning
Uh,
whatever?
yeah, I probably started writing songs in like fifth grade, maybe sixth,
Wow.
probably sixth grade was when I really started writing. I remember the first song I ever wrote. It probably was my first song, but I recorded it with my band, and it's not the best song I've ever. But yeah, I started writing when I was in sixth grade. About I don't
So
have the best. So
you had a band in 6th grade though. That's pretty
no, I
impressive.
had a band. So I wrote the song, and then I didn't do anything with it. Then I just
Mhm.
had, and I didn't write songs very often back then. I was sort of just starting to learn about it.
Mhm.
Then in about 10th grade or so, I had this song in my band, and I decided to record it.
Okay. 10th grade is when the first was that your first band in 10th grade?
Yeah, I've only had one band. Um, and then it was a band I was in through all of high school, and then I switched over to doing solo stuff in college.
Okay. Okay. With that band, was it something that you guys were taking pretty seriously, or is it just like, oh, we're gonna do that as fun, and then you already had like a plan to do something else in college or another
Yeah,
path?
I mean, we took it seriously. We did like 2 tours. We released two
Oh, wow.
albums, one album, one EP. Um, and we worked together pretty religiously, and we actually got a deal like 2 years ago or something, but or maybe it was a year ago. Time is so
Last year, like, didn't even happen. You know what I mean?
um so yeah, I'd say it got pretty serious, and we took it seriously, and it definitely started as three kids recording in a shed onto one mic through Audacity, but it turned into a pretty legitimate project.
Wow. So you would tour, you like full
Mhm.
like US tours.
Well, we did 3 tours. One of them was a East Coast tour. One of them was just like a weekender, a 3-day tour when we did like major like Philly, New York, DC, and
Wow.
then we did a Midwest and Southern tour. That was the longest one we ever did. It was like 16 different shows.
Wow. That's huge. Was that pretty exciting?
That one was sick. That one was cool more because we got to see the country,
Hmm.
but the shows were way better on the first tour we did.
Oh, why did you say that? Were there's more people there?
Took a big bite of apple
Oh, good, man. Every
uh,
time you take a bite, I'm gonna ask you a question.
every time you see me take a bite, just like ponder something. Just give me the room. But it was better because, so I mean, I don't really think anyone's gonna hear this that I went on tour with. That at least I'm gonna badmouth in this segment.
Okay.
I don't think you'll hear me say this, or maybe don't make it like the clickbait article or the headline.
Yeah, this is the only clip I'm gonna use and put it on the internet.
But the first tour, one of my band members booked it, and he's really good and he like really put a lot of work into, finding venues that we were more suited for, and that we could fill up, even if it wasn't a big venue. We could get enough people in it that it would feel like a real good show environment, And
Mhm.
he sort of made a tour that was more so suited for our audience size. And then we went on tour a year later with this band called Ethel Shank, and they booked the whole thing. And
Mhm.
I think they had originally had another band in the headlining spot who was bigger than our band, so they got all these like much bigger venues.
Mm.
And then we just played in like our main demographic was East Coast, like upper northeast.
Sure.
And so when we were going to the Midwest, into like Milwaukee, maybe we had 2 fans from Milwaukee, and then Minneapolis was like low key the place we had the most fans. We had like 15 people come. That like not in the whole thing, but just fans of
For
ours.
yours. But yeah, that
So
would be difficult if you had never been to that
yeah,
city. Like, how
so
would
that tour was cool in terms of I got to see parts of the country I'd never ever seen before, but the shows were generally pretty abysmal, except for Chicago. That was a pretty sick show.
Okay. Wow. Well, you said you guys had a deal and stuff. You got signed to a label and
We got a
have a
deal offer. Yeah. It was with this producer who runs like 2 labels also. It's like
Mhm.
does a lot of shit, but we got an offer, and it's unfortunate because It happened right around the time. It happened pretty like it happened January, like a year ago today, basically, that we got
Oh, wow.
the offer, and I sort of was really hyped about it because it was the first time I ever got, like a record deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the more I talked to my management about it, and the more I thought about it, and the fact that I was, starting to unroll my project and working on it so extensively, and how those two would go hand in hand, it really didn't make sense. And I was recovering from a little vocal injury that had happened primarily because of the way I sang in the band. So
Mm-hmm.
I just looked at my options and eventually had to decline it, which was unfortunate because it was 4-1, and I was the last one to be
Oh.
I think, which is a bummer, and I feel bad about it. But
But yeah, I mean, if you were really pursuing your own thing, you were kind of simultaneously writing songs for your own project and for the band.
yeah, so I was pretty deep into my own project at that point. I the band, we had a bunch of songs that I had written, and that the other person who wrote in the band also wrote. So we had probably like 7 songs in the bag that we were gonna work with this producer on.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had already probably written, if not the entirety of the Erez EP, then 5 or 6 of the songs. Originally, it was going to be an 8-song project, so I'd probably written 6 of the 8 songs by then. Uh,
Wow.
and I was like focusing mostly on writing stuff for myself because I knew that I wanted to pursue my career, and the way I had to do that was to write a lot of stuff, and figure out
Mm-hmm.
what I want to talk about and what I want to, like, what my sound should be. So I was trying to bridge both, but in a much realer sense, I was really focusing on myself.
Okay. And with the songs that you write for Sally Boy, were those different than the band? Like
Mhm.
sonically, like
Yeah,
was it quite different?
yeah, definitely. For me, I mean, for the band, it was mostly like indie rock stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you. I'll give you an example of what it would sound like for the band.
I love this.
Like, stuff for the band would be like, oh my God, sorry.
Dude, this is awesome.
I'm so fucking done with all the misery inside my head, she said, while sipping latte in the sun. Shit like that.
Yeah.
You're just pessimistic, I said suddenly without a care. I say, consult my reason, but it wasn't there. Like shit like that,
That's sick though. Dude, your voice is so sick.
shit like that, which is very different. It was more upbeat.
Mm-hmm.
The band stuff. I love that song also. I want to do something with it still. I'm trying to figure out, because I was playing that the other day and I was like, this song slaps.
Dude, it's good, man.
To work with, like, I don't know if it works with the project I'm about to put out with Sally Boy. And I wrote it or I arranged it with the people in Bluebird. So it's like, what do I do with it? But who knows? Maybe I hope to have like the freedom to be able to make a project with both of them and just release stuff for fun with them, because I feel like it deserves to see the light of day.
Sure. Yeah, that was a cool song, man. Well, with the first EP you put out, like all those songs, like when you wrote them, did you know like these are definitely going to be for my own project? Like there was no pitching them the other
Yes,
way.
I compiled a group, like a solid 20 songs or so for myself that I picked from for the EP,
Mm-hmm.
that I knew I'd written for myself. And there were songs that I would write and I'd put them aside to show to the band.
Okay, so you would write a song and you kind of knew which way you wanted to go with it.
And it's not necessarily that I would go in with the intention of writing it for the band or for myself, because most of the time I was writing for myself,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes it would just come out and it would be
After the fact.
apparent that that was a song for the band.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. So just, I mean, the record you put out, the EP came out in November of last year. Tell me about, like, you said you're about to sign the deal about a year ago now. So right, you're still pre-COVID, like leaving that kind of not wanting to sign the deal. Was that kind of like the end of it with the band?
It wasn't entirely we released another song in July or August, maybe. I think it may have even been September.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
October. No, I don't know. No, it was definitely September. So we released a song past that, but I sort of let them know for the most part that it was taking, because that was basically the point where when we went through that release cycle of releasing that song, I was just, I couldn't be present for it, and I couldn't put everything I wanted to into it because I was really focused on Sally Boy. And so that song coming out and leading up to it was sort of the point where I was like, I just can't do this. Like, this does not make sense. Not that I'm not passionate about the band, more so that I just cannot straddle two projects like this.
Sure. Well, what about the record? Was it already recorded? Like, when did you start recording the album? Like, how did
For me, for my
yeah,
own,
like your own stuff? Like, how did COVID kind of
yeah, I mean, COVID,
help the album, or
yeah, probably. I probably would say it expedited the project because me and my producer, or one of the few producers I work with, like basically the main collaborator on this project, his name's Cole Mitchell. He, him and I and his girlfriend and like a friend or two of mine, we all moved basically to Palm Springs, to the desert, because he has a condo down there, his family does. So we literally just camped out there for 3 to 4 months and just worked on the project incessantly. And then it got to this point where the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. So we moved back to Orange County, because my roommates didn't want like a bunch of people who had been to the protests coming back into the house and stuff like that. So
sure, that's
I
smart.
went to Orange County, and we would do this thing where we would drive an hour into the city and protest during the day, and then drive back and work on the project at night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was COVID definitely helped us center in on that and not be thrown off by other things, but also COVID takes a lot out of you. So
Oh
some
yeah.
there would be like 2 weeks in a row we wouldn't touch stuff because I would just be I wouldn't have the energy for it.
Totally. Yeah. I was just curious because you said that the band put up the song in September, and obviously you guys were used to releasing a record and touring the
Yeah,
albums and all that. And it kind of, obviously nobody was doing that, or nobody still
yeah,
is doing that. So I wondered if you had more time to kind of focus on what you were
yeah,
doing with Sally Boy.
yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely had and what's happened this past since the album came out, probably even like the past 4 months, has been this complete new way of working for me, where I've put way more into my demos and elevated my demos to a point where they could almost be released on their own.
Wow.
But like that what's exciting about that is that, like, the reason I'm saying this is because now I have so much more time that I've figured out a new way to do it, where I put so much time into the demos so that when they're at a certain threshold, they can just be raised. Like the way I said it was like, for my first project, I took my demos to 50% and everyone brought them to 100%. And for this one, they're at like 90% and did bring it up to like 150% with like the collaborators I work with. Because
Yeah.
now I don't only have to tell them how I think it should sound, I can show them how I think it should sound. And they just like take it and freaking boom, compress it into the perfection. So I'd say when people ask me about COVID, I think this part of COVID has been way more, I forget the word. It's been way more useful for my music, for focusing in on music, than for the last project.
Okay. That's
The first
interesting.
project.
Yeah. And the first song you put out was Sally Boy.
Mhm.
And that song did really, really well on Spotify and everything. Like, tell me about that. Like, was it difficult putting out a song as a solo artist, or was it more nerve wracking that way? Because it's kind of, the tension is just on you, as far as if it's a band, you can kind of, there's 4 or 5 of you that
Yeah.
kind of take the hit.
So there you go. So it's funny you say that, because I went on someone else. I talked to someone else like a week ago, and we were talking about how it's easier to be, because they were saying, is it easier to be out of a band because instead of 5 people talking about what they want, 5 people, like, it's just you figuring out all the decisions. And I was like,
Right.
yes, but at the same time, it's way more pressure because you have to be the one to be like, this music is good. And what I said to them was, was before I could go to other people and ask them, is this music good? And the people in the band would be like, yeah, this slaps. And we would all be in the studio together and we'd all be like, yeah, it's like this is hitting. But now I'm in the studio with myself and my collaborator, and I'm like, this is hitting. And they're like, oh yes. So that aspect of solo release is something new, and the self-doubt does creep in, certainly, as I'm sure it happens to every artist. But something that happened with releasing by myself was sort of this new identity, you know, that I had taken or and become, you know. It's the way I look at it now, as though, even though I didn't realize it then, I was sort of trying to articulate what it was then, with in terms of, you know, what I was projecting what I thought it would be. But it was really almost like a rebirth of sense, being able to sort of figure out, because I'd really given my impression to people in my hometown and throughout my life as one person, and like was really confused a lot of the time, and even until like junior year is difficult. But really becoming Sally Boy and having like thousands of new people get a first impression of me was so freeing, because it allowed me to sort of create this new persona, which isn't even a new persona, it's just who I actually am. You know, it gave me the freedom to present myself as I actually am, instead of having to worry about what people would think about me, because it's like their first impression. So what are they gonna think?
Sure. Oh, that's interesting. So you feel like you had kind of like a filter or mask over yourself, like as a musician, as far as the band goes, or just in general, until this project kind of let you.
I felt like I had you know, not been 100% truthful with myself. And this was, though when I first wrote it, I think even like when the Pigeons and Planes article came out, they wrote it as Sally Boy is like, I initially wanted it to be like Sally Boy is the Magic Johnson to my Irvin Johnson. Like Erez is my Irvin Johnson, and Sally Boy is my Magic Johnson. But I've since realized that was foolish, and I'm Sally Boy and I'm Erez. I'm not gonna turn it on at any point, and that's the best way to live, because what I was trying to chase in that alter ego of Sally Boy is simply not. It's something I sit with. I sit like I am not. Yeah. Also, you see this ball here on the ceiling?
Yeah, I do.
You know those? You ever see those Instagram ads of the glow in the dark balls that you throw at the ceiling and they stick and they come back down? And
Oh yeah.
I threw that up there 4 days ago.
It's still up there. That's amazing.
I don't know if I'd give it a glowing review.
Yeah, definitely not. You need to get a ladder or something to pull it
Yeah,
down.
well, I could just grab it. It's off my bed, but
Oh yeah, your bed's back there. There you go. Well, with that, you said like how do you feel like you were able to do that? How were you able to kind of come out of yourself, and far as in becoming, you said Sally Boy's kind of the more true you? Like, how did that, was there a moment that you're like, this is real, like I need to, you know, be this super vulnerable right now? Was there something that clicked? I'm not sure.
well, I don't think, maybe in retrospect, I now realize there was a point when I was figuring that out, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm doing all these things. But honestly, when it first happened, I was having like a really tough time. I had like these really bizarre periods of dissociation and stuff like that. I was having really bad anxiety. And then I think that was happening because of this, what I'm telling you, that I was creating this reboot of how I presented myself to the world, or how I wanted to be perceived. And so as a result, I was sort of dissociated with myself, because it was almost a like very transformative episode, you know?
Sure.
So I'm not sure that I could say how I did it. I don't think I did it by disassociating, but I think that was a byproduct of my doing it. And I just didn't think about how I was going to portray myself. I just acted how I wanted to act, you know?
Sure. Yeah. With that though, like I mean, you had a fan base prior, and when with your band, like, I love that you said that you know, you have a bunch of new first impressions with people, thousands of new people seeing you and getting a first impression. Were you kind of worried about what your previous fans were going to think when you went and did a solo project, or did you not even care?
I don't really know, because I never really tagged myself or shit on like the Bluebird Instagram and my scene was mostly, and I was starting a new project in LA. And so I didn't ever even thought about that fact. Like
Oh,
not
okay.
once. That was like the least of my thoughts, I think, throughout the whole thing. So to answer your question, I guess no.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's good. Right?
Yeah. Yes. I did not think about, I don't want to say I didn't think about my fans, but I guess I didn't really think I had fans, maybe is the better way to put it.
Okay. Well, with releasing the EP, I mean, this is your first body of work as a solo artist, and we're all stuck inside. Like, was that
Yeah.
a thing that was kind of bizarre as far as a release? And like, how do you feel about that?
So the the way that I describe it is release days and just releasing in general were, because I love performing. That's my, like, the best thing about being a musician, in my opinion, is performing and playing shows. And that's why I do it, because I love performing so much. And I just love that interaction of me in a crowd and seeing how my music and me like can create something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt as if releasing in this time period was the closest thing I ever had. I had to that. And I hadn't released singles ever. I only released projects with my band. And so it became like a sort of adrenaline where every time, or like a fix, because releasing a single was this like short thing I could give to someone, and it would like instantaneously, I'd get like a bunch of texts that night and like a bunch of notifications, and then I would meet a bunch of new people and I would see people's live reactions to things. And so it wasn't weird at all to me. It was, in fact, like the closest thing to normality I could find in terms of my music and in terms of what the music industry looked like. Yeah, that's my, and I say this, I've said this to my friends, but being able to meet fans, like, or talk to fans and meet new people because of my music is like a blessing, because you're not meeting anyone new. And granted, there are some weird people that DM me, but I don't respond to them. Mostly I've gotten a lot of really sweet people who I get to
That's
talk to.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
so cool. That's
Really, it's like, I get some really cool DMs about like how my music has helped people, and that stuff I sort of take for granted because I undermine my accomplishments, but that stuff definitely resonates and makes me like realize that I need to keep doing this.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great way to look at it too. Like, because most musicians, it's like, yeah, it sucks. I mean, we thought about pulling the record and holding it and waiting, all these things, because a lot, if your lifestyle is usually record tour,
Yeah.
that kind of, the game is totally changed now.
Oh yeah, so different.
So with that, like, are you doing like, how, like when you put the record out, did you do like a live stream events? Do you do any of that, or is it kind of just it's out in the world and hopefully people
Yeah.
love
So
it?
the main thing, I think we did content pieces with everything, and the main content piece with Sally Boy, with the Erez EP, was the Sally Boy show. And then we did a bunch of just I did a once to watch takeover. I did like We Found New Music live show, and just did a live, and then did a live stream. I think I did a live stream actually the day of Sippy Cup. That was different. So yeah, I just did a bunch. That was, I guess, the closest thing. I didn't really have I had a release party at my house, which was just my housemates and four other,
And a cake, I saw.
Oh yeah, the Erez. Yeah, that was cute. Um, and champagne, really shitty champagne that sprayed everywhere more than it got into anyone's mouth, and Hennessy.
Well, there you go.
That was when Sally Boy dropped, I got myself a bottle of Hennessy, a fifth of Hennessy, and then when their EP dropped, I got a fifth of Hennessy, because those are like the two, moments in this whole thing, right? Sally Boy is the first single I ever dropped. This is the first project I ever dropped. When I drop my first album, I'll get a handle of Hennessy.
Well, what'd you do? What'd you do for Just Friends now? Did you do anything?
I was home. That was the first time I had released a song not with people, like not with my team, like
Okay.
In July when we were dropping we dropped Stormy in July, and I drove across the country in 5 days so I could get back in time to release it with my friends.
That's awesome.
So that's just to say that this was definitely bizarre because it was the first time I'd ever released without my friends. And honestly, I was super bummed like the next day for some reason. I slept like all day. I didn't I don't and then because I was like I felt I'd worked on it a lot and I was happy with it. But then after you listen to your song enough times, you lose perspective on it. And I'd felt as if I didn't do it justice for some reason. I like told myself like it could have been better. Like, why did you let them release a Lucy like this? Like we could have worked on that and made it so much better. But then it got New Music Fridays and I was like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. Like,
yeah, that must have been, tell me about that moment.
it was sick. Cause I was driving. So, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I was driving and I was checking a text, but I shouldn't say that. I was driving on this road that I always drive on. So I know it very well. And I was going slow.
Was in front of you. You knew it.
I'm really just indicting myself on
I won't tell anybody.
Yeah, you could say, let's just say I was driving with someone else and they were driving the car. Anyways, I literally just texted my managers that I didn't want to release another Lucy in January, and I never wanted to release a song that I didn't feel like I'd given it all I got, which is so dumb because it's like that's me giving myself this thought that I have to work tirelessly on a song for it to be perfect. But that's just so dumb. And sometimes when you work on a song enough times that you love it, it has this lightness and this ability to listen to it a ton of times because it was put into the world with no subjective feelings. It was all objective, you know? Anyways, I tell them I don't want to do this. And they're like, you probably should. And I'm like, stupid. Like, I don't want to do this. And Sean sends me a screenshot, like right in the middle of that conversation of us getting New Music Fridays. And I text back and I'm like, my perspective might have changed.
Just a little bit.
Changed.
Maybe like a 180 in the car.
Yeah, I was driving and I was just like in this bad mood because I'd slept, like I said, I'd slept the whole day before and I felt like the release hadn't gone well. And I don't even know. But then he texted that and I was like chipper. I literally just like that. I was so, it was literally 180. I turned around and I didn't turn the car around, but I just
mentally,
and I felt lighter. I felt that my work was justified and that I hadn't made any mistakes. And yeah, that was what this experience was like. This release was. So that's me going off of you asking me what I did. I didn't do anything. I got depressed and then I got really happy.
But you got really happy and you got on New Music Friday, which is massive. I mean, massive.
It's really, really fucking cool. They've given us 3 placements now. So that's really sick.
That's so cool. I mean, that's massive. That's massive if you get on those playlists, especially New Music Friday. I mean, that's like the one, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's so awesome. I was gonna say, you were talking about like, you know, felt like that song was a Lucy and like you didn't put all your all into it, but I feel like that could be something that would happen to musicians quite a bit, where it's like it's your baby and you're working on it and you're like you can almost like overproduce and like overwork on it, like where it's out. At what point, you kind of just have to let it go, right?
Yeah. Me saying I didn't work hard enough on it is me saying I didn't revise it 5 times.
I figured. That's what I meant. Like you probably were sitting there like, I should have spent another 15 more hours on this thing. Where it's like,
it's like, because when I first listened to that song, the thing is, it's so weird is when I can't tell if the first time I listened to my own song is what it really sounds like, or if the 500th time I listen to my song is what it really sounds like, which is complicated because, and it always happens also when I show someone my song for the first time, then I feel like I've heard it for the first time, but maybe I'm just, hearing it in a different context and it's making me criticize it more. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure that out, at what point I should trust my instinct and at what point I should torture myself, because that's what I've heard. That's what I've been told that creative geniuses do. But then you look at the fucking Beatles wrote, I just learned this, but the Beatles would write all of their songs in like the first 3 albums. They would write them the week before they went in the studio. They would be told that they would be in the studio, and then John and Paul, because originally they just wrote all the songs.
Right.
Literally just get a hotel room and write every song for the 1 week before, and then they'd be in the studio for 4 days and cut it.
Wow, I didn't know that. And I'm a huge Beatles fan. I've never heard that before. That's super interesting. And I guess but
So
that
that
puts it into perspective, like, okay, we have a studio time in 2 weeks. Let's write all the songs for the whole record today or the next few weeks. Wow.
Yeah, I'll write a song and I'll sit on it for however long, and which is it sort of shows you partially how the landscape has changed the music industry, because people don't really, at least I don't think people put on SoundCloud stuff that they've recorded, or like they'll write a song and then record it and they'll put on SoundCloud that night, but you don't really see people doing legitimate releases that they've written recently or wrote on a whim, and also like people don't book studio time anymore.
I was just gonna say, I think that's kind of a thing of you could do so much demoing from your own house nowadays, where it's like maybe if you wanted to go in and recut something, or when just use different equipment or whatever, but everyone has the capability to do it from their own house,
which in part probably is what perpetuated this culture of overdoing it, because you can do as much as you want, whereas before it's lay it down, it's done.
Right, time is money. And before, like, you didn't have endless days to sit in there and overproduce and overproduce and overproduce.
You also couldn't even nitpick, because you would do it all into you would do it all to tape.
So, right,
and they would all it would all go onto one track, so you couldn't even go in there and, like, at least very early on, you couldn't go in there and be like, I want that guitar quieter, or I want a different tone. It was like, well, then I would have to change everything else in the entire recording.
Right. It is what it is at that point.
But even with the Beatles, if we're just to bring up this, keep going with this topic, then when technology got better, and like with Strawberry Fields, I don't know if you ever heard the story behind that, but they did like 50 takes and nitpicked the fuck out of that, to the point where they took the first half of like the 13th take and the second half the 37th take, and they're both in different keys and different tempos, and they slowed them down to the point where the tempos were close enough and the pitches were equal.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just they had to go dig through all these takes and figure out which tape piece they wanted to kind of cut together.
I think it was that John just always remembered that he loved this one take. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I did hear a story too with Zeppelin. Jimmy Page wrote like 5 or 6 different solos for Stairway to Heaven, and then they kind of had to like decide which one they wanted to use as like the album cut. Like he just went in there and ripped out of like 5 or 6 different ones, and we're like, you guys decide. But I guess if you're Jimmy Page, you could do that.
Yeah, honestly.
Well, man, that's so Just Friends Now is out now, and then is that going to be part of another like EP? Or is it just a standalone single? What do you have coming out?
Just Friends Now, I expect will just be a standalone single. I don't intend to put it on a bigger project. It doesn't. Someone wrote that they said something like the 1 minute 39-second track feels like an interlude between his old sound and his new sound, which is, they fucking hit that on the head, because that's literally what it is. It's the acoustic, slower, somewhat heavy feeling of the first project, mixed with these new production elements, vocal manipulation, and brevity of the new project. So that's how it exists for me. It feels like I don't want that to be on a project, because it served its purpose, and to put on a project would just be to add another song to it, rather than speak to the overall like
theme of the project or sound. Yeah. Would you have I'm sure you have a ton of songs in the bank there. Are you planning on putting out a record or an EP, or what do you have coming up?
So we're going to start the next single cycle probably in February. I'm pushing for March 3rd, because my birthday is March 5th. So that'll be a nice, like a nice week to drop it.
That'd be cool. A little birthday present.
Exactly. But my managers are hoping that we can put out earlier to maintain some of the, what's the word? When you have momentum, to maintain
the momentum.
And I'm like, just give me a birthday present. What do you? Who cares about these business terms? Let's just.
You're like, February's a short month anyway. Who cares? We can push it 3 more days.
We dropped December 16th for Just Friends now, because 16 is my lucky number.
Oh wow.
So why don't we drop on my birthday week? Because that's always the best week of the month of the year. It's my favorite.
Right.
I love my birthday. So
sure. Yeah.
Sometimes
you can pitch them out that it's a short month. Pitch them February is a short month.
You know what? It's a good point.
Say, we can do the extra 3 days. It's what, 28, 29, 30, 30. Yeah. It would be like essentially on March 1st. Who cares?
Exactly. Well, right now, yeah. From right now, it would be a month, and then a month and a half about. Yeah. So that's coming out early March, middle of February.
Hopefully March 3rd.
I'll just say it's a little. It's coming out March 3rd.
Every interview now, it's March 3rd.
Yeah.
And your management's like, it is. You're like, yep. Sorry.
That was that's funny, because when I first started doing press and stuff for this first project, I kept calling it an album, and my manager was like, stop calling it an album, it's a project. Like you want, a label wants to release your first album, so don't say you're releasing an album. And it is a project more than it is an album. It's there's, I feel like the layers there's, you could do a mixtape, you could do a playlist, then you could do a project, then you could do an album, in my opinion, or an EP, like
EP,
mixtape, playlist, EP, project, album. So it makes sense to put it here. But anyways, yes, coming out March 3rd, and then I have another. That's going to be the first single of this new release cycle.
Very cool.
Because initially the song, they wanted to be a Lucy, but I love this song so much. I feel like it needs to be on a project. So I think it would also work to be a part, like the first single for the project.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to check it out. Can't wait to hear it when it comes out on March 3rd, your birthday week. And I appreciate you spending time with me today. It's been awesome. Yeah. I have one more question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
That's always difficult, because sometimes I feel like I haven't even gotten to the point where I deserve to give people advice, but I probably do have some insight at this point. Yeah, I would just for a while, man. I would probably tell people to be patient with themselves, and make sure you not only focus on the music, but you make sure you get a really good team around you of people who not only are competent, know what they're doing, but just genuinely good people who support you and appreciate you and give you the energy you need to keep going and making the things that mean the most to you. Bringing it backward.